Always live and always wild. Hi everyone and welcome to this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. And you are watching the Africam show brought to you by explore.org and you are hearing the voice of Trishala. We are having a look at the Oldonyo cam at the moment. It never ever disappoints. We've got two really beautiful elephant bulls having a bit of a drink. I think that's a fantastic way to start this afternoon. So much variety. So if this is the first time that you guys are joining us, welcome. If this is not the first time, welcome to you too. But just a reminder that we are live and interactive, so send through your questions and your comments. We love to hear from you. And this is an opportunity to spend half an hour with a ranger or a guide like myself, and we get to chat about some of the behaviors that we see on the cams. I think this is really, really fantastic because often you will spend a lot of time watching the cams and you might have some questions, so this is the ideal time to go ahead and ask them. And there are no silly questions, I promise you. Only silly answers. So go on and send them through. Or you can just send through your hellos. So far we've got Rosa Torres Bravo. Hi Rosa. You say good day. Well, a good day to you too. Oh, we've got none other than Zygote that says hi as well. Mindy Tillapau, you say hello all. Hello Mindy. Gemma. Hi Gemma. You say good day all from New Jersey, USA. It looks like a fine assortment of wildlife awaiting us on the cams this morning. Absolutely. We briefly saw those elephant bulls up at Oldonyo, and now we're down at Tau, and we're having a look at some of the zebra. Andy, you say good day everyone. Hi Andy, thank you for joining us. And Karu, you say you actually made it today. Well, I'm glad that you made it today, and I hope that you will enjoy the show as much as I do. I must say this is quite an interesting group, quite a large group of zebra. We might be looking at two separate herds there, yeah, because this is quite a large group. And zebras usually have what we call a harem social system. Oh, we've got an impala ram just on the right corner there, doing a bit of yoga for us. No impala, we are talking about the zebra right now. So the reason that I think that this could be two herds is because zebras employ what's called a harem system, social structure. And that includes a stallion and several mares. And so if this stallion who is in charge of this herd has managed to get himself this many mares, I think it's quite impressive. It's not something that we wouldn't expect, it's just really impressive. But maybe these few that are left behind here are actually a separate herd. As you can see that that group is moving quite closely. But again, we must also remember that zebras will move as rains, and therefore nutritional or their nutrition moves, and they're going to get all that good nutrition from grasses. So as the rains move, it means that, hey, there's going to be some better growth on the other side, so we're going to follow those rains and follow the new growth. And when they do that, the herds kind of become a little bit less distinct. Suki V, you say greetings all, and last managed to watch the show again. Thank you for coming again, Suki V. We have missed you. We've got good old Bob from Kalamazoo. You say, good day, Trish, ready for another great show. I am so glad to see your name, Bob. Glenda Newman Croft, you say hello from Indiana. Hello to you. And Inspector Gadget, you say hello. Hi, Inspector Gadget. Used to be one of my favorite shows when I was growing up. Laura MC, you say good morning. Of course, you've got your coffee. Where is Aussie Jan too? That's what I'd like to know. I'm sure she will make her way eventually. We've been seeing a lot of new foals around this time of year. And I mean, it's fairly common to see lots of new babies across all species at this time of the year. It's the best time to give birth, because it is when there is just so much abundance. And it's important, particularly for young zebras, that they are born at a time where there's plenty of nutritional and moisture-rich grass around. Because baby zebras, though they take quite a while to be weaned, sometimes even up to a year old, but they actually start eating pretty soon. So they'll be drinking milk and eating vegetation quite quickly. So it's important for there to be some good nutritious grass around once they start eating it. Just heard a grey go-away bird sounding a little irritated. But they tend to feel or to sound irritated quite often, to be honest. Mary Moe, you say hi Trishala and all you Africamers from a sunny, warm Hot Springs, Arkansas. Rolling in a tad late because you had to get your cup of coffee. Of course you had to, Mary Momo. You and Aussie Jan too always have your coffees in hand. Oh, have a look at this. One of the zebras just on the right there is losing the tip. It has lost the tip of its tail. So its wagging tail looks a little bit odd. But again, it's not something that's uncommon. Because a lot of the time, many zebras fight quite brutally, and bits of your body that are kind of hanging out are the best things to grab onto. And a tail, as well as ears, are really good for that. The other thing that could cause that kind of injury is, of course, predators. Something that these two big boys don't have to deal with very much. I love seeing elephants always when they're close to water, but especially when they start bubbling the water. So when they breathe out of their trunks and kind of gurgle the water. They do that often when they're looking to particularly drink nice clean water. So they'll kind of move the water around and make sure they get some really nice clean water as opposed to just drinking any old muddy water. But sometimes they do it for a bit of fun. But let's head back over now to Cal. Zygote, you're saying in context of the Oldonyo camp that before sunrise, you heard a lion roar at Oldonyo, which was superb. Oh, isn't that just great? Some of the most spectacular things in the bush happen at sunrise. Sunset has a wonderful feeling about it as well, because the sunset kind of just, it closes up the day and opens up this new world, this new time, where things are a little bit different in the bush. And at sunrise, it's a similar thing, but there's this precious kind of 45 minutes to an hour where it can just be amazing before the sun has well and truly made its way into the sky and it is day again. So I'm really, really glad, Zygote, that you managed to hear a lion roar at Oldonyo. Really very special. So I'm having a look now at the striped patterns of these zebra. So we saw that the zebra were numerous in this area, and we know that they are in this area. But striped patterns are always a good way to identify any animal, particularly any animal that is patterned, really. And so if we have a look, can you see the front legs of the zebra? Just where the front legs join the body, which is the shoulder, there's kind of a triangular bit, almost where the lines come together. There's a triangular bit just at the shoulder there. So it's thought that that particular striped pattern, that triangular bit, is what calves use to identify their mother when they do it visually. Of course, they'll also be able to do that through their olfactory senses, so through a sense of smell. But visually, zebra foals are thought to imprint their mother's pattern into their brains. And we think that it is that pattern, that triangular shape just above the shoulder, that is the one that they use. Hi, Andy. Andy, you'd like to know, are zebra born with all their teeth? No, they're not born with all their teeth. In fact, they're not born with any teeth. But within the first week or so of being born, the teeth will start to emerge. They do have deciduous teeth, so that means teeth, milk teeth essentially, teeth that will need to be replaced by permanent teeth later on. And those milk teeth that they get are usually the incisors and the premolars. And within a couple weeks of birth, they're going to start, those incisors and premolars will come in. Hi, Safari Lover. You say, Trishala, so nice to hear your voice again. I love how informative you have always been. Keep up the great work. Oh, my pleasure. I love being able to learn stuff and then talk to you about stuff. Especially when I hear or learn about things that are very, very interesting. Hi, Mindy Tillapal. You would like to know if I can talk about how each grass eater likes different types or levels of grass. So I think that's an excellent question, Mindy, because we're looking at a bulk grazer right here. An animal that will kind of eat indiscriminately. So when I'm talking about this, I'd like to also give a disclaimer first, in that none of these things are exclusive. If there's one thing I've learned about science and biology, is that there is always an exception, and certain circumstances will always change an animal's behavior, because essentially all that matters is being able to survive to reproduce. But generally speaking, zebras are bulk grazers. And zebras don't mind even eating quite rough grass. Grass that is sometimes very dry, or what would appear to be very dry to us, and sometimes very long. In fact, sometimes even after a bushfire, zebra will still go after grass that's a little bit singed. And considering that zebra are hindgut fermenters, so we're talking about their digestive tract now, they're hindgut fermenters. So basically, they're almost no animals. I say almost because there are very few, and those very few are insects. Almost all animals cannot digest cellulose on their own. And all vegetation is made up of cellulose and lignin. So all these parts of the tree that are very hard to digest. So they have to employ bacteria to do this for them. And usually that's bacteria stored in the gut. Now if you were a ruminant, you would have a 4-chambered stomach with a rumen full of this lovely bacteria that's going to be breaking down cellulose. And then you would throw it up into your own mouth, how delightful, as cud, and then chew on it, and then swallow it back down to finish the digestion process. The problem with ruminants, or ruminating, is that it takes a lot of time. It means that you've got to eat in one spot and then move away and digest somewhere else. In a way, it's also advantageous because you can eat in this spot where potentially maybe you hear a predator. You can eat quickly there and then go somewhere else to digest and ruminate. But the disadvantage is that it takes a long time. Zebras are hindgut fermenters. So they don't have the 4-chambered stomach. Instead, they have a system that kind of looks a little like ours, except that the fermentation is happening before we reach the intestines as opposed to above the stomach. That's why we call them hindgut fermenters. It's after the gut. And so for hindgut fermenters, they are really able to get a lot of seemingly, or get nutrition out of a lot of what is seemingly dry and unnutritious grass. But it also gives them this appearance of looking bloated. So zebras are able to take longer grass that's really not too nutritious, maybe even a little old and dry, but still be able to make use of it and extract nutrition from it. But that's also why it's a little bit difficult to tell if a zebra is malnutritioned, because they will always kind of look nice and full and gassy. But we look for the mane. If the mane is floppy, then you know something's a little wrong with the zebra. And zebra are important because they make way like other bulk grazers, particularly bulk grazers that are unselected. They make way for other more selective grazers. You'll often see wildebeest moving around with zebra. And they prefer slightly shorter grass. But it's wonderful to see so many animals coexist that seem to have the same nutritional aim. You know, they just want to get vegetation. But actually, they're not in direct competition because somebody is grazing just a little bit lower, just a little bit higher, or even foraging just a little bit lower, just a little bit higher. So it's a wonderful thing to discuss, and it just makes you think in a broader way, and I love that. We are now looking at the Olifants River. Hasn't dried up very much. Remember, we've been having all this rain up on that side of the country. The rivers and pans are just looking so full. And there's also a lot of movement. So as you can see here with the Olifants, there's a lot of movement, which also means that there's going to be a lot of sediment, which is what we can see in the river. I always like to have a little look around, a little pan in this area, because even if there aren't any animals around, because it's a huge river. It's not just a pan. And landscapes, geology, movement of water is an incredibly important part of biodiversity. And essentially, if there wasn't some sort of erosion to create soil to catch rain, then there would be no substrate for many of the plants to grow in, and then less biodiversity, because there would be fewer niches for organisms to fill. Hi, Karu. You wanted to ask just one more thing about the zebras. You say, was that herd all females or one male? You just realized that you don't know anything about zebra herds. That's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's, well, I guess we can have a look if they're still there, but I doubt that they're going to still be at Tal. But if not, that's fine. We can chat here as well. So zebra herds are made up of a stallion, so a male, and several mares, several females. Oh, there we go. We're back. They employ what's called a harem system, so that means a single male and several females. So we often talk about territory, an animal having a territory. But zebras don't have territories, at least not in the spatial sense. What they do have are territory in the sense that they have the mares. So the females are their territory. And so usually there will only be one stallion in a herd. The rest would be females and their shared offspring. Now, if he's had a herd for a while, he might have some male offspring in that herd as well. But those male offspring would be kicked out pretty soon, and any of his female offspring will likely be abducted by other stallions that are hoping to form a harem of their own. And those can be some quite crazy fights. Now, it's really, really, really difficult to tell male and female zebras apart. The females are, of course, slightly smaller, but other than that, it's really hard. And that's because the majority of the males' sexual organs are internal. Of course, when they need to use it, they're all out. And I was absolutely privileged to see it all hanging out recently. And that was the first time I had ever seen a zebra's penis, to be very honest, in, I guess, all its glory. And when you see it, then it's very obvious that this is a male. But if you don't see it and everything is back up into its body, it can be really difficult to tell them apart. So I would say that this herd is a little bit mixed, but always there will be one single dominant stallion. And he is not giving way for anyone else. Unless, of course, a challenger comes across, in which case there will be a brutal fight and someone will win that harem. I am just so happy. Gosh, I love leopard tortoises. And I love seeing them drink because they have to dunk their whole head in. Or half, well, their whole face in, not their whole head. As you can see that this leopard tortoise has no preference for the type of water it's going to be drinking. Not at all. Interestingly, this leopard tortoise and the zebra have something pretty cool in common. Leopard tortoises are also hindgut fermenters. So remember when we were talking about Mindy Tillipal's question about the different grass heights that different animals consume, and how I said that hindgut fermenters can really take in all this rough stuff and they don't mind. So zebras are hindgut fermenters, and so are tortoises. I think that's a cool little thing to have in common. Of course, this has evolved separately. It's convergent evolution, which simply means that there's a problem. The problem in this case being, I need to digest cellulose. How can I do it? And then two separate species arriving at the same solution independently. So a leopard tortoise mostly eats grass, but again, to digest it, it needs the help of those symbiotic microbes. Kaoru, you're just giving me some thanks and you're saying it's really interesting. It really is interesting, and it's my absolute pleasure to be able to share all that information with you. It is really interesting, and when you watch zebras for a long time, they almost become more and more interesting. It's just that sometimes we don't really give them time or attention, or as much as we could, because they're quite common. Hi, AV. You say one of the little five. One of the little five indeed. They're so amazing. It's like he's taking a little bit of a break after all the water that it's drunk. This is truly a wonderful time for leopard tortoises because there's so much freely available water that they can travel longer than they would ordinarily, and they can take a little bit more risks. And being able and comfortable, resilient enough to take risks is a really important part of finding success. I suppose in a way that's a little bit of a life lesson for all of us. And when there's plenty of resources around, you can take more risks. Perhaps travel a little farther. Maybe when you travel a little further, you find a mate and you're able to reproduce. Caro, you would like to know how big do they get? Leopard tortoises actually vary quite a lot. They can weigh, an adult can weigh about 13 kgs, although I must say, I'm pretty sure like up to about 18 or 20 kgs. I feel like I have seen individuals that are that large. I know that they can get up to 18, but I would say even up to 20 wouldn't be outrageous. But weighing around 13 to 15 kgs is more usual. There have been reports of particularly exceptional leopard tortoises that weighed about 40 kgs, and their size changes geographically. So particularly in the Eastern Cape, where I've been spending a bit of time recently, the leopard tortoises seem to be really big. But in the Lowveld, I haven't seen them as big as I've seen them in the Eastern Cape. Mindy Tilapau, you would like to know how water dependent are they? They are, I would actually say that they are water independent. And that's for a couple reasons. One, anecdotally, there have been stories of leopard tortoises surviving years, months, if not years, in somebody's rucksack or trapped somewhere, because they're able to enter somewhat of a stage or a state of torpor, which is essentially a state of inactivity, where they can slow down their metabolism. It's different to hibernation. This is a torpor is a period of inactivity. It's sometimes called estivation as well. And so if they enter that state, Mindy, they're not water dependent at all. And then on top of that, remember they've got that bursa sac, that cloacal bursa sac, and that's going to be filled up with water, a reserve. And if you've already got a slowed metabolism and you've got that reserve of water, you can go for some time. But any animal that is water independent, mostly water independent, I mean, we could say the same about leopards, the cat leopard, not the tortoise. A leopard is essentially water independent because they're getting the majority of their moisture requirements from the food that they eat. But that doesn't mean that if there is water available, they're not going to drink. Because at the end of the day, if you can get it through drinking, readily available, you might as well do it. AV, your last comment, you say, AV's talking about the little five, and I think it's always worth mentioning before we say goodbye. AV, you say it's the leopard tortoise, the buffalo weaver, the rhino beetle, you say the lion ant, but it's the ant lion, and the elephant shrew. Yes, you are correct. Those are the little five, and you should always come round to Africa to have a look at the little five too. And here you have one of them right here. Remember, leopard tortoise, buffalo weaver, rhino beetle, ant lion, and elephant shrew. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It's time to say goodbye. I hope that you've enjoyed our little snippet together and that you learned something. So I always learn something from your questions, and I love interacting with you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.